I am Vinnie Tortorich. Folks, your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. Just like the woman on the other mic, folks, this is the Friday show. And I like to bring on people with way more knowledge than me because, hey, that's how we learn. This woman has been on the show before. She's not only one of those crackerjacks when it comes to the smarts, but she's a crackerjack when it comes to comedy. And I didn't know that about her the last time she was on. You'll see her and her wife on, not YouTube, but I don't know where in the hell they put these things out. I see them.
Instagram.
I see them on Instagram. I see them on Twitter and everywhere else. Folks, you just heard her voice. I'm talking about Miss Michelle Hurn. How you doing, Pumpkin?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me back on.
You know, it's funny, Michelle, because you're one of those people. You're a registered dietitian, and you went through the whole rigmarole to become that. But you don't follow the company line. Is that safe to say?
That is absolutely safe to say, yes.
So what happened? All right, so give us the rundown. Where did you go to school? Let people know, let's take a big old swim in Lake Michelle. Where did you go? Tell people where you went to school, how you got your RD, and then
sure.
Let's go through that.
Okay, I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version. If you watched the last episode, my health journey really began when I was 12. When I was 12, I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. I was very seriously underweight, 5 feet tall, 57.5 pounds, ended up in inpatient treatment for 2 months, immediately put on the standard American diet, 24-hour tube feeding system. And although I became weight restored, I had chronic issues. I had severe anxiety. I was told, you really don't recover from eating disorders. You're probably going to deal this for your whole life. And so I wanted to become a dietitian because food had helped me become weight restored. I was no longer in danger of dying, but I had this intuition that potentially food could help me heal. Because like I said, I had severe anxiety, depression. I mean, you name it. I dealt with suicidal ideation. I, relapsed, lost a bunch of weight. But I grew up in Texas. I'm born and raised in Plano, Texas. I ended up becoming an athlete. I ran for the University of Arkansas for a few years. I got a really bad injury. Unfortunately, from the history of anorexia, I had very low bone density, which ended my college running career. I actually ended up doing the last 2 years of my degree online, which back in the early 2000s, before we could text and do all that other stuff, was a little more challenging than I imagine it is today. And then I did my internship, moved to Portland, Oregon, up at Oregon Health Science University. So that was kind of the beginning of my becoming a dietitian. But God, to become a dietitian, so you get your 4-year degree. Then when you do an internship, then you sit for the RD exam. But even when I was in the internship, there were things that I was being taught that just didn't make sense. For example, we'd go in the room with somebody with type 2 diabetes, and my preceptor would say, okay, we're going to teach them to eat 75 grams of carbohydrates per meal so they can dose themselves with insulin, this equal amounts of insulin per meal.
Right.
And I would just ask questions. I'd just say, hey, isn't their blood sugar high? Should we teach them to eat less carbs? And, I was kind of pegged as this difficult dietetic student. No, we were taught that the foundation of human nutrition, it doesn't matter if you're obese, you're underweight, you have kidney failure, complex carbs. Every state needs carbs.
Right. Okay. We're going to come back to that. I want to put a pin in that because there's so much to unpack right there. But 12 years old, anorexia. Why were you obviously trying to control?
Yes.
The one thing you can control. You're in Plano, Texas. You don't have to get into whatever it was, but how did you fall into that? Or do you remember falling into anorexia?
Yeah, it happened so quickly. It wasn't like, years in the making. I actually lost weight over a relatively short period of time. I would say within 6 months. And I talk about this a lot in my first book, The Dietitian's Dilemma. My mom is diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And, back then, this was, over 25 years ago. there wasn't nearly as much help. There was a huge stigma around any type of psychiatric illness. And so she suffered a lot and a lot in silence. Unfortunately, there would be days she would lock herself in a room for days, or, was dealing with just fits of mania and, and then very, very depressed state. And she also really struggled. I'm not sure if it was ever diagnosed as an eating disorder, but she was sure she was overweight and, communicated that to my sisters and I a lot growing up, and the message was being overweight is unlovable, is not good enough, and then my father, who's, I have a good relationship with both my parents today, but he was trying to, raise 4 children or help afford 4 children. So he was working a lot. So he was gone a lot. And so, I've had people ask me, and even it was a little hard for me to kind of wrap my head and my heart around, like, gosh, how did you guys miss your youngest daughter losing so much weight? Because I didn't even end up getting help until I literally passed out in school. And then I woke up in the hospital.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was just wearing, baggy clothes. It became very easy because we had stopped eating meals as a family because of my mom's mental state, and my dad was working more. So it just kind of was like the perfect storm of, I kind of describe it as like the high of starvation. It was like, it was something that I could control. I remember that as a very young person, but I also remember, when I actually first went to treatment, my parents dropped me off. Didn't see them for 60 days, but I was told, like, hey, we need you to wait here. We're going to have to talk to your parents in private. And they took my parents into, across the hall. And of course I'm 12, so I don't do what I'm supposed to. And I kind of tried to follow and listen to what they were saying. And I heard the doctor tell my parents, like, this does not look good. You guys need to be ready. She may not survive.
Really?
And that was, and, as soon as they, said that, I went back to where I was supposed to be sitting. And I remember in that moment just thinking, like, I cannot cry. I cannot cry. Because I even at 12, I was pretty sure this was the last time I was going to see my parents. Because my dad, first time in my life, I saw him crying. My mom was bawling. And they're both saying, like, yeah, you're going to be fine. We're just worried about you. And we're just going to be sad to not see you, And I remember saying over and over, like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine, And as soon as they left, I actually remember feeling just a sense of relief. Like, this is almost over. And I think about that a lot. And I take that with me, just how horrible and painful and just horrific eating disorders are. That even at the age of 12, I wasn't scared. I remember being sad, but I remember being overwhelmingly relieved. Like, I'm not going to have to live this way much longer.
So you had just said to yourself, I'm going to die here. This is it. And did you try to fight from the beginning, or did you just say, screw it, I'm here, I'm just going to die? Right. How does that work? I mean, does something click? I mean, now you're going to be, for the lack of any other term, force fed, right?
Yes.
They're going to be monitoring you. And first off, did they have to put you on IVs or do any of that? Or were they just trying to give you food? What was happening at the beginning? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember the first night I was there, they call it like a grace period. And this was early 90s. I have no idea what it's like today. So I wasn't required to eat. So I just went to bed, and I woke up, and I remember a nurse was saying, like, hey, we're going to take you to the hospital. You're going to get a tube. You're going to be tube fed. And I was, just bawling. I didn't obviously want that. I had no idea what that meant. It was scary. But you really don't have control over that. And I was really weak at this point. I mean, I could still walk and stand and stuff, but once again, like 57 pounds, I wasn't really in a place to resist. And I was told several times, like anytime, and this was right before they actually split up adults and kids. So we actually were all in the same facility together. Now it's 18 and under is, you're not allowed to mix. We were constantly being told that, like, you don't want to go to a psych ward. If you fuck up here, they will send your ass to a psych ward and they will strap you down.
Really?
And, so that was like a really scary thing. Like, if you don't fuck up, don't fight back too much, or they're going to end up literally strapping you down. Uh, so
Yeah.
that was kind of like a constant threat. Even if you just like, said something or did something, like being threatened to go to the psych ward was pretty scary as a 12-year-old. So yeah, but for whatever reason, even, my body chemistry just didn't go well. Tube feeding formulas are so bad. I mean, they're still horrific today. They have some better ones, but it's corn syrup and, maltodextrin. And so often I would wake up and literally just be soaked in tube feeding formula. The tube would clog and it would get
Wow.
all over the place. And I would be crying and it was a mess. And, but I remember every morning I woke up, I was like, God damn it. Like one more day, surely tomorrow's the day I don't wake up. But after time, I did, as I said, start to become weight restored because then I was eating. And then, the doctor told me like, hey, you know what? You're just going to have to become a high functioning person with anorexia. Like, looks like you're going to be okay.
No,
Yeah.
I don't mean to butt in, but I always go back
No, that's all right.
to the late great Karen Carpenter. I don't know if you know who she is.
I do, yeah.
The woman was not just talented as a singer. I don't think most people know this. You can go now because we have the internet and find Karen Carpenter wailing on the drums. The woman was incredible. You don't get that good at something without having that mentality, right?
Yes.
And she could never be thin enough, right? And she was an anorexic from day one. And, ended up dying because her heart got so weak. People don't realize, your body keeps pulling protein from your body in order to survive, and your organs are being chewed up, and her heart couldn't survive anorexia. She just died. Right. And this woman was talented, and there was money and everything else. I mean, money cannot save your ass when you have this disease, right? Not even if you have that kind of money. And you're 12. Jesus. I think about that, and it just scares me, looking at you today. And you said, you got out, right? Were you there 60 days or were you there longer?
60 days out.
Okay. You get out. How much do you weigh when you get out?
Like 72 pounds, not enough, but enough to where I was no longer like in danger of dying.
Were you eating regular food at that point? Do you have to pass some kind of litmus test to get out, or?
They wanted to keep me longer, but my parents had already taken a second mortgage on the house to, because it's not covered by insurance. It was considered there's all kinds of horrible loopholes. Yeah, no, I was eating, but it was very, at the treatment center, it was still kind of like a varied diet. But as soon as I went home, I immediately fell back into a lot of behaviors and, didn't do very well for another, like almost a whole year.
Yeah. Well, when did you finally, I guess now you're 14? When did you finally kind of get it that I need to eat, I need nutrients, I need to be healthy? But when does that kick in?
Yeah, when I first got back, I was still very underweight, and I went to my family doctor. My parents took me there for a physical, and I told him like I want to play sports, and he said, "Yeah, the hell you do." Like, no, I'm not approving. You can't do anything. Like, you get to go to school and come home. And that whole year wasn't great. Still underweight, and kids aren't kind to people who are different, and I was pretty isolated. And then that summer, I wish I could tell you like, man, the light bulb came on or something special happened. But I'm very close to my older sister. I have 3 older sisters. My next oldest sister is only 14 months older than I am. And she was, I missed her. Like, we'd kind of severed our relationship because she, told me many years later, like, I was so sure you were going to die. I couldn't be around you, But she was working, she worked at like a pizza place, and I remember she came home one night, she'd bring home pizza for our family all the time. And of course, I never ate it. And I remember one night being like, oh, hey, can I have some? And it was like the whole room went silent. Like, really? And then from then on, I just spent the rest of the summer just eating a lot of food, like tons of things I had never eaten, since my eating disorder, lots of cheese and meats and, at that point, ice cream, anything. And I ended up, gaining quite a bit of weight, up to, I want to say like 95 pounds. And I went back to the doctor, and said, I want to play sports. And I remember he came in and he was like, I saw your name. And I was ready to say no, but he's like, you look okay. Like, I can't tell you no. And, kind of like you said earlier with Karen Carpenter, I do believe, man, I've never met somebody with an eating disorder who isn't intelligent and driven. And it's like, God, if we can take that energy, like channel it into something more positive, you'll be very successful.
Yeah. I often find when people have those kind of, problems, they're out thinking themselves, right? That's part
Sure.
of whatever the problem is, right? I see that a lot with kids nowadays. I did an Instagram the other day about analysis paralysis, right? People will call me up to do consults, and some of it is just analysis paralysis. They want to do this, so they go on the internet and Dr. Google says do this. You
Yes.
just read down a few more things and something's telling you that's not right, this is right. And they end up not doing anything. And as I tell everyone, do something. I'm not saying you have to do my NSNG or low carb, or I don't care if it's veganism. Start somewhere, right? Learn something. And then that may teach you to do something else, right? You can, everybody wants to get it right out of the box. I mean, think about everything you've done in your life where you've actually made it, right? People always say to me, I've been successful in different businesses and whatnot. And they'll say, how do you become successful? And I'll go, come here, I got a secret. I'll tell you the secret right here. You got to fucking fail a lot.
A lot. It's so funny you say that. I was thinking of, the first road race I ever did. Now I run so many races. It was a hot mess. My first attempts at writing were terrible. My first attempt at everything. And I worry about our young people now because they seem, like you said, they seem so worried about getting embarrassed or failing that they don't do anything. And it's like, how are you supposed to become great? Like, if you're going to become great, you gotta just keep going. It's time on task, right? That is going to make you great at anything. But yeah, you have to be okay being really bad and making a lot of mistakes, because that's what kind of sharpens your focus and helps you really hone in. Like, okay, now I'm going to do this differently. Now I'm going to this is working, keep doing this. This didn't work, don't do that. And that's how you become great.
Yeah. Look, and I talk to my nephews all the time, and tons of young people in the neighborhood. I'm kind of like the old guy in the neighborhood that will have kids come over for movie night, watch Rocky movies, or any kind of motivational film. And I'm always saying to them, you guys think you have to be the best at everything, right? Just go out there and try everything. You're going to fail. Just fail. Fail at every sports, fail at everything. Keep trying, because the only time I got good at anything was on a building block of failures. And it sounds like you did the same thing. You had an eating disorder. You don't know how you got there. I mean, your parents, your mom was in the room and your dad was trying to make money. And there's, at least 3 other girls in the house with periods. So it had to be this crazy thing going on, right? And then all of a sudden, here's Michelle, 12 years old, going, wait, I got to be able to control something. Oh, I know. I'm going to control my stomach. I'm going to control what goes in my mouth, right? You had a failure there, but that failure leads to success. Now, you mentioned earlier that, and I knew this from your first podcast, at some point you relapsed, right? Did you relapse? Or am I thinking of someone else?
Well, I would say I didn't go back into treatment. I definitely got back to the point where I lost quite a bit of weight. And, that was kind of on the table. Like, hey, you can't keep losing weight. We're going to pull you out of sports. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And so, I always, being kind of a smart, snarky teenager, kind of rode the line, to where I would weigh myself. And if it was, my parents had a set weight I had to be, and like, oh crap, I'm a half pound underweight. So I'd chug a bunch of water and like, okay, guys, let's weigh.
Yeah.
So the eating disorder, dealing with racing thoughts around food and struggling with my body image, constantly, worrying about things like that lasted through my adolescence into early adulthood. And kind of like you were saying, though, like I was constantly trying to figure out, like, I just had this intuition, like, I'm not supposed to be like this. Like, I'm not supposed to be standing on the sidelines of my own life. Like, I see young people my age that are engaging and having fun. And I always felt so kind of awkward and standoffish. And, why can't I just be in the moment? And, now obviously after changing how I eat and learning more about the brain and ketones and stuff, it makes so much more sense to like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I just may not be able to process and utilize glucose as well as some other people. And I'm a much happier, healthy human when I'm, focusing my diet around, high fat animal products and, higher protein things.
I know you're an endurance athlete now. You ran in college. What were you doing in high school? Which sports?
So I started with soccer. I really liked soccer. I actually played soccer a little bit before I struggled with an eating disorder. That was kind of my first love. And I wanted to do that afterwards, but I was very small, And so then I tried basketball and same thing, very uncoordinated. And I really wanted to do basketball when I was in high school. So I tried out for basketball and immediately got cut. And it's like, well, you still have to have a physical education credit. So we're putting you in PE. And I just was like, oh God, I don't want to do PE, anything but PE.
Yeah.
And the coach was like, well, you can run. Do you want to run? And I didn't know cross country. I knew what track was, but I had no idea there was this cross country thing. And I just fell in love with it right away. I found I kind of had a natural knack for it. And it kind of felt for me, I all of a sudden had this like new purpose to fuel my body because I could immediately tell like, wow, I eat more, I'm running better, I feel good. And, especially long distance runners, we're a little strange. So I kind of had this community, the girls that were all a little weird. And so I felt like I kind of fit in and, and had success. I think you tend to like what you're good at, right? Like you said, you're young, you play different sports and it's like, oh, I really kind of a knack for this. And you build camaraderie with your teammates. So, that was something that, and it has really served me well, running through my life and through trials and other things. I really found a lot of solace in being able to run.
Were you ever bulimic in that time? You ever go through?
I never was. No. And I know some people go back and forth between the different disorders, but I am, it's a good thing or whatever, but I just was never able to make myself do that. I certainly attempted to throw up, but I never was able to do that.
Exercise bulimia at all? Did you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely in the early anorexia, I would, I had binders of hours exercise and calories intaken and all kinds of things. So, and once again, I had no supervision as, early 11 to 12. So get home from school, immediately out the door and just walking until it was, 10 o'clock at night.
For anyone who's listening, we're talking shop right now. Exercise bulimia is the only way I can describe it is calorie in, calorie out. So she was measuring, I ate X amount of calories, therefore I need to either walk, run, jog, jump a rope, ride a bike for X number of hours to have a deficit of calories. That's about as well as we can put that, right?
Yeah. And I would imagine myself as well as anyone else who struggled with that, it was kind of like times 10. So it's like, well, if I eat 100 calories, I need to be moving to burn 1,000 calories. Like you always go way over what you're,
right.
took in.
Look,
and it's so arbitrary, there wasn't any logic to it.
I don't think you're old enough to remember the Barbie twins. Do you know who the Barbie twins are?
No, I don't.
Look them up later. Their last name is actually Barbie, Barbi. Shane and Sia. I was pretty good friends with Shane. I knew them both, and they were the only time in history. They were twins, gorgeous women. It was the only time in history. I think only twice Playboy had to go back into production on an issue because so they literally during the month went back into production because you put these two beautiful, gorgeous twins naked in a magazine and it sold like no other. I remember the billboard being up on Sunset when I was in Hollywood. And at some point I became friends with Shane and Sia, more Shane than Sia. And they were exercise bulimic. They were every kind of bulimic, right?
Sure.
They had eating disorders from hell. And I'm not talking out of turn because they wrote books on it to try to help people.
Sure.
It was crazy. I'll never forget one night I got a phone call. I was living in Brentwood at the time, really close to the Santa Monica stairs. That's where everyone goes to run up and down stairs. It's like 200 some odd stairs from the top of this canyon to the bottom. and you would see celebrities out there. I spent my life out there training people and going up and down the stairs with them. And Shane would call at 2 a.m. Hey, would you mind just coming out? And, because, you're out in the middle of darkness because she just ate something, right? They were at a restaurant or something, and they ate something and they had to go to the stairs. They would have a limo drop them off at the stairs, right? And they
it controls your life.
Yeah. Can you imagine that?
I can. It's, I remember having as a young person having like a breakdown because we were going to go to our grandparents' house. And I remember being like, how am I going to exercise? How am I going to escape? How am I going to get out of away from people or how am I going to hide, not eating? So yeah, it's a horrific disease. I wouldn't wish it on, anybody. And we know that, anorexia has the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric illness. And I think it's over 20% of people with eating disorders don't die by complications. They take their own lives. And I get it. It's a really dark place.
We're going to switch gears right after I do a quick ad because there's a reason why we have you on the podcast today.
Some lighter, happier stuff. I like it.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. First, folks, Villa Capelli Olive Oil, longest running sponsor on this show. They've been with us from the beginning, like 11 years now. Villa Capelli. Look, I love this stuff. Reason being, in this country, and Michelle can probably tell you this too, in this country, you can cut olive oil up to 40% and still put 100% pure olive oil on the label. It could say first press, cold press. The tree doesn't even know the olive is missing yet. That's how fresh this olive. You can put whatever you want on that label. None of that matters. You can end up with 60% olive oil, 40% seed oils. Not a good idea. And if you don't take my word for it. I'm selling a product right now. Go read the book Extra Virginity. Go look at the UC Davis olive oil study. I am not making this up, folks. Every time I'm doing a consult and people will say to me, hey man, I went and looked up that UC Davis. I had no idea. I just thought you were selling product. No, I don't do that. That's not me. You want to get the best olive oil? Now listen, there are other olive oils out there just as good. I don't have time to go out there and figure out which ones they are. And sometimes they're good this year, and then next year they're sold to a big food company, and voila, it's not what it used to be. The one place we know you're going to get good olive oil every single time is Villa Capelli. You can go straight to villacapelli.com. You can go to vinnietortorich.com, click through the banner. Either way, when you get to checkout, put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, and you'll get 10% off. Now, here's a little trick. Paul Capelli, when he was still alive, he used to go nuts. I would say this, but Paul is now dead. Now, his husband's now running the company, and he doesn't care so much that I say, he might care. Here's the deal. If you spend about $145 and then you get the 10% discount, you're going to still be above $125. So buy some herbs, buy everything else they have, get above $125. After the Vinnie discount, you get free shipping. And listen, when you're buying 3 liters of oil, free shipping is a big deal. Villa Capelli, let them know we sent you. VINNIE, no wimpy Y. We're talking to the beautiful Miss Michelle Hurn. She's got a great book out there. What was the first book called, Michelle?
The Dietitian's Dilemma.
The Dietitian's Dilemma. I read that book. It's in the Vinnie Book Club. This is the new book that's going to be in the Vinnie Book Club. It's called Fox Family Food Fight. Or is it The Fox Family? What is it?
The Fox Family Food Fight.
The Fox Family Food Fight. I've not read it yet because somehow Michelle and I weren't connected. We don't know what happened, but we got disconnected online. I didn't even know this book was out. Your book reminds me of a children's book I wrote about 25 years ago now, called Monty. It was about a horse who was a show pony. Children's book. It was a show pony, and what happened was Monty couldn't show anymore because his hooves were too brittle. So to get it back, the food had to change, and there was a hoof cream and the whole thing. We never talked about vitamins and minerals in the book. But the idea was, hey, this horse was fixed because that happened, right?
Exactly.
And I took that from a horse. The real name of the horse was the Full Monty, and it was owned by none other than William Shatner, Captain Kirk.
Oh, no way.
And that horse
Oh,
ended up back in the show ring. He had written it off, a couple of $100,000 horse, just written it off.
yeah.
And you know, we nursed it back to health. I say we, my ex-girlfriend, fiance at the time, was one of his main trainers, and
Wow.
got that horse back in shape with nutrition. Can you imagine? Right?
Nutrition is so powerful. It really
It
is.
really is. I mean, you're here today because of nutrition.
It saved my life. It's changed my life. And that's what, that's what inspired this second book, actually. And I mean, actually, maybe the lack of good nutrition, I was originally inspired to write this second book. The FDA had just announced that they were coming out with 2 medications for children with type 2 diabetes.
Ugh.
And I was so mad when I heard this. And I'm not anti-medication. I certainly believe they have their places. But to me, it's just like we have this obesity epidemic. We have all these problems that we know we have very good data can be reversed with nutrition. And instead of doing that, we throw pharmaceuticals at people, which we know are going to cause more problems down the line and not actually fix the problem. So I went on a run. I was just fuming, and I'm like, I'm going to write a kid's book, and it's going to be about a child who has type 2 diabetes and he reverses it. I'm like, God, that's kind of boring. Nobody's going to want to read that. And then there was an election going on in our town, and a woman who was running for mayor, her name was Sarah Fox, and she had a sign with a picture of a fox. And I thought, oh, foxes are so cute. And then I started thinking of all this alliteration. I was like, foxabetes and a foxpital and the foxetician. And I was like, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do foxes. So I had that day off from work. So I just went to Starbucks and started jotting down all these ideas. And I had no idea. I've never written a children's book. I didn't know what it would cost or look like to get illustrations. And I'm I'm in the wrong business. I was surprised at some of the quotes I was getting to do illustrations.
Yeah.
And then, so I was sitting there and kind of calculating how much it would cost. And, since stepping away from healthcare, I not nearly as lucrative, writing books and being an advocate. So I actually, back in this past June, I had flown out to Washington, D.C. To sit on a policy meeting. We're trying to get a low carb option added to the 2030 guidelines. And when this policy group had asked me to do it, I was like, I can't do it. I can't afford it. But they offered to pay for my trip. And shortly after that, I was actually contacted by a woman who said, hey, my husband and I follow you. We appreciate your work. We would like to pay for your DC trip. And I said, oh man, I'm honored, but it's actually being paid for. And as I'm looking at this quote for the book, I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach back out. So the women, her name is Kristen Tidwell, her husband, Ryan, said, hey, I have this idea. I think we could reach a lot of people, and especially kids, because my God, since I've been practicing as a dietitian, we're seeing more and more cases of heart disease, of type 2 diabetes in children.
Yeah.
The youngest person I saw with type 2 diabetes when I was in acute care, they were 8-year-old boy,
It's scary.
And
it's really
that's
scary.
terrifying. And I hate that so many dietitians are like, I don't know what to do. Call on me. I know what to do. It's almost like we're afraid to give some tough love. Like, hey, no more soda. We need to stop this. Anyway. And yeah, so they offered to fund the book. And so, the goal of the book, it's not a paleo or carnivore keto book per se, but what it is, little Freddie Fox and his Fox family, a lot of alliteration. They're in the forest, they frolic, they hunt, fish, and forage, and they are perfectly healthy. And then
and somehow they end up in the fox spittle. That's
yes.
I did look through it a bit. Yeah,
They
I
do.
didn't read it yet. Let me just say this, folks. If you have a kid, the illustrations are beyond. I know what it takes to do illustrations because of my book Monty. I know that. Can you hold your book up and show some of the illustrations?
Yeah.
Before
so
we get into it?
this is the cover.
That is amazing.
And then just some of the.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
a few more and move it slowly. So don't
okay.
Yeah, like that. I mean, this is incredible work. the formatting of it. You see, I'm into all of that because I have a couple of books. Just beautiful all the way around. I can't wait to read the whole thing. I have it.
Yeah, you have to let me know what you think.
I'm going to be reading it tonight. I wish I could have read it before this, because why I couldn't. I just went through and glanced and things like Fox Spittle and this, and I say, oh my God, I love what this woman's doing here. I love the illustrations. Kids are going to be into this. Something where a parent is reading it to the kid can dream through these illustrations. I remember when I was a kid and my mom would read to me, I would look at the illustrations. You're dreaming that thing, right?
Yeah.
And I really see that in this book. So get into the story of I just wanted to add that so the audience can understand. She didn't just crap out a book here. When I saw that, I went, oh my God, a lot went into this because I know what it takes to do it. It's way tougher than doing, just a book where they're words.
Oh yeah, this was 9,000 times. And the formatting, like I had no idea because you have such large images. It was an adventure. But yeah, so the foxes, they're happy. And then this fox from the city comes to the forest, and his name appropriately is Foolery. And he's big and buff, and he says, Fox family, what are you doing? Why are you hunting and fishing and foraging? Come work for me in the city in my feel-good foods factory. If you eat these feel-good foods, you're gonna be buff like me. You're gonna be happy. And so it kind of represents like that processed food industry, right? Like this beautiful images. And the Fox family's like, wow, that sounds amazing. But Grandpa Frankie, the grandpa fox, is like, I don't know. And little Freddie Fox is like, well, I was kind of looking forward to learning how to hunt. But they all go to the city and, they eat the feel-good foods. And we try to put some language in there to kind of lay the foundation of like, hey, like, like when Freddie Fox is eating the foods, even though his tummy hurts, he can't stop. It's almost like they were downright addicting. Right. And then what do you know? After about a month, Fox family doesn't feel better. They're not big and buff and strong. Mom is tired, Papa's paws ache, and then little Freddie passes out. And that's when he wakes up in the foxpital and he finds out he has type 2 foxabetes. And he's scared. And, I think our kids too, sometimes they try to communicate like, I don't feel good, I'm scared. And, parents are like, maybe even downplay it. So we really wanted to kind of like make Freddie the hero of his own story. So the Foxitician, the dietitian, comes in and says, hey, you're fine. Keep eating these feel-good foods 3 times a day, and we're going to give you medication 3 times a day. And as you know, that doesn't work. He feels terrible. And so finally it's Grandpa Frankie who just like, this is nonsense. Like, hey, I think it's the feel-good foods that are causing your type 2 foxabetes. And the Fox family has been so busy working in the factory. They're like, Grandpa Frankie, what have you been eating? And he's like, hey, everywhere. There's food all around us. It's in the bushes. And
I can these cats and
there's a big pond. He's like, even if I have to trek to it. And so the Fox family, they decide as a family, like, hey, we're going to commit to just eating the foods we forage. We're not going to be eating the feel-good foods. And then, they start to feel better. But then they're like, well, what is going on? Like, why is Foolery? How is this fox? How is he so buff and happy and strong if he's eating all of these all these processed foods? And they have the same conundrum. Like, we never actually seen him eat. So Grandpa Frankie and Freddie, they hide, behind a bush and they follow him back to his den. And they are floored when they find out, to give you a little spoiler alert, but he's not eating the feel-good foods. This fox has a farm. He's eating farm fresh foods and he's got a whole weight room where he's lifting weights. So he's basically lying to the foxes. So Freddie, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you find out something that you believed in your heart, it's not true. And it's just this like, Freddie is crying and he feels so defeated. Like, how could somebody lie to us and know that we're being sick just to make money? And so that's when, his mom swoops him up and is like, hey, you have a good heart and you care. And the family's like, well, we're going to tell all the foxes they don't have to be sick. They just, have to go back to eating real foods. And, the book kind of ends with Freddie says, well, like, what if they don't believe us? And it's like, hey, we're the Fox family. We're just going to keep advocating. And that's kind of like, yeah, we're the Fox family. We're ready for a food fight. And the very last page, we just wanted to have some statistics. So it talks about like, hey, this is where we're at with type 2 diabetes, has a few more resources. But, you know, just like you were saying, the goal is that kids can sit there and they can kind of live the adventure and get really excited, like,
Yeah.
yay, Freddie. And parents can be like, ooh, oh crap. Like, we gotta do a little better, you know?
So it's Liver King for kids, right? You know
Without
about
the
that guy,
steroids.
right? Yeah, but still, it's the same. You know, I was telling people early on with that guy, right? People are going, Liver King, he just eats liver, and the guy's built like a beast. And it's like, no, that's steroids. What,
Yeah,
jealous?
that's
Are you
not.
jealous? Like, no, I'm not jealous. I don't want to look like that. I'm just
Yes.
telling you, don't follow a drug addict. You're following a drug addict. Yeah, I agree. Liver supplements could be great, especially if you don't want to eat liver. Get some vitamin A. Great idea. But you're being lied to. And I'm using him as an example, but we see it every day. Thousands of examples of people on Instagram saying, I do this, yet you know they don't do that.
You know, they don't do that. And I
Right?
mean, that's what processed food, so many food companies and pharmaceuticals. There's even one point in the book where the father, Felix, goes to Fullerton and says, hey, when are we going to look like you? Like, what's going on? And he's like, hey, you're fine. Just keep at it. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
they start to question. And that's why I always, all of my advocacy video, every time I tell people, like, do not let anybody or anything ever override your common sense. Like, if something doesn't make sense, like, probably not true.
Looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's
It's a duck.
probably a duck. You know, and look, I'm always saying this, you know, whenever people say, well, you know, you guys are, you know, when guys like me started like 12 years ago on the internet saying, hey, eat low carb. What should I eat? I don't know, anything with fat. Eat bacon, eat animal protein, eat eggs, eat cheese, eat this stuff. You're going to kill people. No, you're not going to die. Trust me. I've been doing this with my clients long before I came to the internet. Do this, right? So I was on the front, me, Lauren Cardane, you can name the group of us. One guy's in prison now because of other stuff, but we were pushing this and everyone was calling us quacks, right? And then, you know, people started trying and an N1 became an N2, an N3, an N1000. You know, along the way, people like the guy who wrote a foreword in your book, Ken Berry, he came along. My friend Nina Teichos came along, also did a foreword in your book. Tony,
Yeah, she's fantastic. Yeah.
and she was here at the house just like a month ago. I love her to death. You know, Tony Hampton, who is in your book. See, I remember some things that are.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, all these people started coming along, and now it's not just a few of me doing this. It's like thousands of people pushing this, and it's not an N1. Now we have an epidemiological study where people are actually looking better. Their A1Cs are changing. Their fatty liver disease is going away. They're getting off of Ozempic and Wegovy and everything else, and they're feeling better, right? So we start winning. You start winning. You come along with your antics, you and your wife, and you do these funny videos and you put these books out and you say, hey, I'm a registered dietitian. That's not telling you what they taught me in dietitian school. All of us, we come along. So then they change the narrative. Well, look, yeah, you can look great, but it's killing the planet. Somehow all of a sudden now it's killing the planet. Right.
Yeah.
And they start calling me a client denier.
Oh my God.
When did I ever deny the client? What are you talking? How did I become a client denier? Because I tell people to eat meat.
Yeah. You know what I like to say when people freak out, like, meat's bad for the planet. I say, you know what? Let's just quickly facts. You know what causes way more emissions than even if, you know, I'm a big advocate for regenerative agriculture, but even industrial agriculture, way more in the US is healthcare. Yeah. If we got, there was a really cool statistic. If we got everybody with type 2 diabetes off of insulin, it would reduce carbon emissions significantly more than, you know, agriculture.
Well, and look, you know, I don't know if you saw my third movie, Beyond Impossible, where I talk about Beyond Meat and Impossible Burgers. But
yeah,
the way I got into that was, wait a minute, they're saying this is better for the planet. It's better for you, which we know is a lie. It's processed junk. But they're also saying it's better for the planet. Okay, wait a minute. Most of this crap is made in China, and then they have to take some kind of fossil fuel to get it to the US, Then it goes in a factory and it has to be mixed together. We're spewing more CO2 carbons into the air. When is this good for the planet? You're telling me that a ruminant farted yesterday and that's worse than making this food? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Once again, the common sense, you know, to me, it's just like, how did they do that? But their propaganda is so powerful. You know, they have all this like images and things. And it's amazing to me that they've been so successful. When I say they, I'm specifically referring to like a lot of the processed, you know, like the Beyond Beef and burgers, just saying how we got to reduce meat. Meat is bad for humans. Meat is bad for the planet. And it's just like, if meat was genuinely bad for health, the human race would not exist. That's where I start with people. Like, that's how we evolved. We ate the megafauna. We weren't eating tree bark. That's it's not how human brains came to be. And then the planet, it's like we had animals around forever. And we've had, you know, an excess amount of emissions, specifically with, you know, transportation and healthcare and, you know, all kinds of other things that ideally we'd be targeting that. But, you know how it is. It's like billionaires like Bill Gates, you know, like, let's go talk about the planet, take our private jet. It's very silly.
I had this goofball. I was in California recently where I am still a lot, even though I moved out of there. And it's like, well, you know, ruminants have to go. It's like, so we should get rid of the cattle? Oh, yeah, but we have to stop. Okay. So ruminants are the problem. Absolutely. I say, okay. So the bison, do we get rid of the bison? Do they go? And you said ruminant, right? Bambi, you know, deer, that's a ruminant. Do we get rid of Bambi? I love deer hunting. Can I hunt year round and kill them all? Well, you know, where do we stop this ruminant thing? I think a giraffe is actually a ruminant. Is that a ruminant? You know, so if ruminants are the problem, let's go get them all. Let's go get all the ruminant. So you don't want to kill Bambi. I get it. So why are we just going after one ruminant? Why is that one ruminant belching up and causing, you know, a polar bear to sit on one little piece of lonely ice somewhere out? You ever see that? It's like, this polar bear is stuck on this piece of ice. No, you idiot. That polar bear is fucking hunting for fish. Or any penguin or anything. You think that polar bear is floating out there for his health? You think he's stuck out there? No, he's there for a reason. Do you realize that people, I don't think people realize this. They think that polar bear is just stuck floating out in the middle of the ocean. He's going to die out there. That thing can swim like Mark Spitz. Oh, I'm sorry, you're young. Mark Spitz was that won 7 gold medals.
Yeah. Before the other. Yeah, no, and polar bears are very efficient swimmers. Yeah,
they swim
once again,
like,
people are nuts.
Yeah, like, no, that polar bear out there on that piece of ice, he's taking a break. He's tired of fishing. You know, you try to tell it to people and they don't listen. You know, they say, oh, no. This Bill Gates said it's killing the planet. That was a summit. You know, okay, go to your fucking son. I don't have time for you. So is the book out right now?
Yes, you can get on Amazon right now. There is a Kindle version as well, but I highly recommend getting the paperback just because it's just fun to like hold in your hands. And I'm really excited too. I don't know. I don't think last time we talked, I had this going, but I've started a charity project called the Protein Project. It is my belief and thought, unfortunately, that a lot of processed food companies target people who are lower income. You know, they're going to be trying to get people as young as possible. And obviously, you know, if you maybe have a lower income, you're more apt to get processed foods, and they kind of target that group. And so, you know, if you go to a food bank, unfortunately, a lot of food banks are really limited if they don't have refrigeration. You know, there's always cereals and beans and rice, but often there's not a lot of good sources of protein. And so I started just in my local area. What we do is we're actually able to get grass-fed beef. It's frozen from a regenerative farmer. And so what he does is he kind of like imperfect produce, you know, takes the cuts of meat that maybe you can't sell at the market, but they're still great, right? They're perfectly usable. And he sells them to me for much cheaper than, you know, we're talking like $1.99-ish a pound. And that just goes straight to the food bank. We actually just dropped 300 pounds there today.
Nice.
So every portion, we're just doing a third of whatever the book makes. We're just funneling it directly into the Protein Project. So
Keep it up. If I can help with any of that in any way, shape, or form, let me know.
Thank you.
So, folks, go. It's going to be as part of Vinnie's book club. I'm going to read it, and then Debbie's going to put it in the Vinnie book club. Go get it. The Fox Family Food Fight. You're going to want to read that. I can tell you just by glancing, reading a few pages, learning about the fox beetle, oxabetes or whatever else. I'm loving it, and I love the. I'm a visual person. The photos, not the photos, the what do you call them? The images,
Illustrations,
the
yeah.
illustrations. Thank you. Unbelievable. You want to get this. Go through VinnieTortorich.com. It puts a little coal on the fire, gets my train down the track, and you'll be helping out a worthy cause, because this woman and her wife. By the way, where can they find you, Michelle, on the internet to watch you and Corinne do what you do?
Do our videos, yeah. So
Yeah.
Instagram, I'm at Run, Eat, Meet, Repeat on Instagram. On Twitter, Michelle Hurn RD. And then I do have YouTube, The Dietitian's Dilemma. I don't post on there as much. The dietitiansdilemma.net is my website, especially if you're interested. There's a direct link for the book, or you want a little more information about the protein project. But yeah, we just do some parody videos showing kind of like how ridiculous things are, like oat milk or the nutrition guidelines. So yeah, and I'm always, if anybody has any questions or feedback, I'm always open to answering those as well.
The real star is your wife, Corinne.
Yeah, she's way better. She's such a good sport.
The way she does the straight part of it is just is beyond. She's so good at it when she's asking questions. I remember watching one before I got cut off from you, where people thought you guys were being serious because you do a parody of, and it's like, no, but it's like, no, folks, shut the fuck up. Watch it all the way through. Watch it through, because they get to a point at the end and they're all great. I don't think we're friends on Instagram. I need to go do that. I used to see you on Twitter, but I'm going to go Instagram you.
Yeah, Instagram me now. Yeah.
And we'll have that also. Folks, you know what to do. Before you go to Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com. 'Tis the season. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but I think I'm going to move it up. I'm going to get this one moved up in the order, because this is a great Christmas gift. I can't get it up for Black Friday, or maybe right after Cyber Monday. So if you don't shop on Cyber Monday, if you need more stocking stuffers, get this book. I'm going to see if I can get it up right after the Friday after Cyber Monday. I think I can get Debbie to do that. So this book will be available for you guys ahead of other people. You're probably be coming out ahead of Nina's podcast.
Oh, man. Well, thankfully, we're big fans of each other. So
Yeah. No, she's a wonderful, wonderful human being. So we're going to move this one up because it's Christmas season. This is a perfect stocking stuffer. I'm going to buy 10 of them.
Oh, thank you, Vinnie. I appreciate that.
Well, no, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because when people come by, it's like, oh, geez, someone came by. I don't have a gift. Boom. Hey,
perfect. I'm making your life easier. There we go.
Here's a gift. I do the same with Anna Vocino's book, my co-host on the Monday show. I get 10 of each of her books. And when, like the gardener comes, hey, man, here's your gift. The mailman comes, hey, man, here's your gift. I give everyone a cookbook. It's better than just, hey, here's cash.
Yeah, something you can actually use, practical, right?
Yeah, and everyone, the house, we have a cleaner that comes in, and she's got 2 women that work for her. Boom, that's 3 books right there. And as a matter of fact, the woman who owns that service, she's got a 12-year-old son, and he's kind of husky. So she'll be getting one of your books. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to be handing your book out for Christmas. So there, folks, go check it out. Oh, VinnieTortorich.com/VIP. Go there. We already have the beta group working. I think no, the beta group might be coming out right after this. Help me out. What's the Friday after Thanksgiving? All right. So this is coming out. You might still have time to get into the beta group. So go to VinnieTortorich.com/VIP. We're starting that up mid-December. I'm not waiting till the new year. Time is a construct by man. So I don't just go, oh, no, it's January 1st. Everyone's got to do everything right. We're going to do some things right in December. I had a consult with a woman this morning that's such a sugar addict, and she's talking to me right before Thanksgiving. This is going to be good for her, right? This is going to be good for her. She's going to be in that group. If you guys are sugar addicts and you're carb addicts, you want to go to VinnieTortorich.com/VIP. That's all I'm going to say. Go get the book, The Fox Family Food Fight. Doesn't roll off the tongue for me. So, and check out what Michelle Hurn is doing. On behalf of Michelle Hurn, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.